Welcome to 2026, everybody. It's wonderful to kick off season 2 of Biogas TV Live with you. We are the #1 live biogas TV show in the world. We talk to developers, tech providers, financiers about the realities of doing deals in the North American biogas market. Alex McFarland is my co-host. Drew Puchot is our leader for the RIN Roundup at the end of the show. I want to announce our RNG Technical Symposium. This year it's on March 18th. It's a free event to guests. If you have a technology you're looking to promote, hit us up. So our sponsor today is IVUS Adsorption. IVUS is a world leader in gas processing and upgrading. Their expertise includes cleaning and separating biomethane, biogenic CO2, and hydrogen. The prepackaged BioStream fast cycle PSA is now a key industry standard for biogas upgrading for dairy, landfill, and food waste RNG. See www.ivusads.com. That's ivusads.com for more information. So, Alex, how was your holiday season?
Fantastic. Just got a little skiing in, dodged a few ice storms. It was great. How about you?
Good. Yeah. Good family, good health. Spent too much time getting some voluntary surgery, but my eyes are much appreciative of that, which was much needed. So good to be back in the saddle. I announced my quasi-retirement around the holiday, and so now I'm feeling my way through that. What does that mean to be partly retired? So, but we're here in the saddle through the end of 2026, still going at it, but all's well. So, yeah, the end of 2025, we had a flurry of activity. We started working on biogas into boats. We were looking at biogas into planes, looking at all these new things to do with biogas. The IMO was a bit of a letdown, huh, Alex?
Yeah, we were sort of left at the altar there, along with a bunch of other biofuels and folks who wanted to put kites on cargo ships. But I think the good news there is that the work is continuing behind the scenes. I know, there are various working groups that got set up, and they continue to move forward. I'm thinking specifically of, for example, life cycle assessment. So the scientific work continues in the background. The negotiations continue. I think there's still an opportunity for biomethane to have a major opportunity or major impact should that ever come into force. And of course, Fuel EU is still there, and that's the law of the land. And I've heard that UK and Turkey and a few other places are looking at their own
Yeah.
systems as well.
How are you feeling about the Canadian market of late? Do you think 2026 is going to bear some fruit there for us?
I think so. I'm very bullish on that. I think the big question in 25 was whether the credits would survive the sort of political season, right? They had a big election. Polyev, you've got Mark Carney that ended up coming in, and he reiterated his support, and his administration reiterated their support to cleaning up transport and reducing carbon overall. So I think that policy is pretty secure. The question is whether the people that the obligated parties might see that whether or not biomethane is a part of their solution as far as a clean fuel, and whether they're ready to contract for it in the kind of long-term agreements that folks have been looking for.
Cool. Good. Well, we've got a featured guest today. So Fitch is with Purpose Energy. Fitch has led his company since its inception 18 years ago to now being one of the preeminent developer, owner operators of organic waste biogas projects in the US. Welcome, Fitch. So good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you to you and Alex for having me on today. You guys are great advocates for biogas, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you.
I think we met around 2008-ish. You were up at Magic Hat in Burlington, Vermont, doing your first deal up there and
Yeah,
got to see your first tribrid reactor. And you had to do a lot of little innovations there, right? I remember you were trying to convert spent greens
that brewer
into
screen. Yep.
biogas. That's back even like pre-fracking when natural gas was worth like $15 or something back
15,
then,
I
wasn't it?
remember
Well,
that.
kind of, kind of. So that was the genesis of the company. Now, I heard on the radio that natural gas was $15, and I thought, man, you could probably make it for less than that. Oh, wait, that's a business. So we started and we financed this plant, got all of our contracts and everything. We're ready to build. We started construction, and by the time we got done with construction, gas was back down to 3. We were
Amazing.
sitting around like, geez, why are we still in business? And then we got our first check from the brewery. They started paying us their avoided cost of trucking, and it was worth way more than the energy. And that's when we realized we were actually an industrial wastewater treatment company that makes biogas. But I remember we first got that thing going, and it was our first project. We had some farm engineers, we had some uni engineers, and we came up with a best plan and we built it. And we got a lot of things right, but there were a couple of things that we missed. Um, in particular, we totally underestimated the amount of condensate that comes out the biogas pipe.
Okay.
Yeah, and in Vermont, that's a problem. There was one time in the winter, I remember up on a 30-foot ladder with a torch on our gas pipe trying to thaw that condensate that froze. And when I met you, we were looking for somebody that had a little bit more experience with biogas piping. You were what was the engine? O'Brien and Gear back then.
O'Brien and Gear, yeah.
Yeah. So O'Brien and Gear, we contracted O'Brien and Gear to redesign that biogas pipe.
Did you have a flame arrestor on that pipe while you were up there with the torch fish?
No, I had to rip the insulation off but remember back then they had that what was it, the ARRA, American Reinvestment Revitalization
Yep,
Act or
era,
something?
yep.
Yeah. So there was the Section 1602
1603.
grant loop, right? So we qualified for that, and there was this time where we had like 13 cents in the bank account, and then we got wired by the IRS over $1 million, and that was a sigh of relief. But we reinvested that money into the facility to make it robust. We paid people like O'Brien and Gear to help us figure out the biogas piping.
I give you guys a lot of credit that some firms in your shoes would immediately kind of give Europe a phone call and bring over their latest and greatest technology, but you kind of went from the ground up. You started from scratch. You had your Dr. O'Keefe in the lab and his pilot, and you just said, we're gonna do our own technology. So how's that worked out for you?
Yeah, we had to back then. We thought when the company was formed, we were just going to buy commercial off-the-shelf digesters. We got this contract lined up with this brewery in Vermont called Magic Hat, and we couldn't find any digesters that would meet our functional requirements. There were two things we wanted to do. Pretty simple, right? We wanted to make as much gas as we could because the business plan was selling gas at $15, and we wanted to discharge to the sewer. Anheuser-Busch at that time, maybe still, but at that time, they were the biggest biogas producer in the world. And we thought we could just use whatever they use. And they use upflow anaerobic sludge blanket, UASB. Well, the UASB guys said you can't put any solids into the reactor. You have to separate them first and only put the soluble material in there, which is what most people do who use a UASB. That didn't work for us because all the methane potential's in the solids. We wouldn't hit our numbers. We wouldn't be making the gas that we needed, the $15 gas to make it work. So UASB was out. Then we started talking to all the farm digester guys that were doing plug flows and stirred tanks. And if you think about those systems, especially back then, everything came out of the digester, went into the lagoon, and then got land applied. Well, what comes out of the digester doesn't meet the discharge requirements that we needed to for the town. We had to be below 250 milligrams per liter of BOD. And if you're wasting your biomass like that, then you're just not going to be successful. So we ended up doing something a little bit different. It's a hybrid. Actually, it's a tribrid. We call it the tribrid bioreactor, but We mixed together a plug flow, an upflow, and some solids recouped into our system. And lo and behold, we took over 10,000 pounds a day of organic load and reduced it to 10. And that makes everybody happy. If anybody goes to Vermont, you look at all the development that's happened in South Burlington, south of 189 there. That wasn't possible without us because the brewery was taking up all the capacity for the municipal wastewater plant. By reducing that load by 10,000 pounds, that gave the treatment plant that capacity to reallocate to other people. But yeah, long story, but that
Oh,
was the
that's a
last.
I mean, that's a win for digestion technology right there that you can say that it's a great story for other districts. I mean, I think one of the things we've also seen more recently, Fitch, and we've also talked about this, is some of the pushback, right? Some of the folks who don't understand digester technology coming out of the woodwork and attacking these projects. And stories like that, I think, are and when folks understand that a digester is here to manage organic waste, it's there to help you deal with something that is a need for society, and it does it in a clean way, and builds on existing infrastructure. I mean, I think it's a great case study.
Yeah, we always attack it from a wastewater treatment perspective first, which means we're reducing the organic load that we discharge. It happens that that's synonymous with maximizing the amount of gas we can make because the organic load is, as Spies proved, stoichiometrically proportional to the gas output. But our first job is we have to hit our discharge limits. Otherwise, we can't discharge.
How have you done with community relations over time? I know some of our other high-profile peers in the space are having a hard time with neighbor relations. You ever find any pushback from the local communities, or do people bring you in, welcoming you in?
No, we never have. You can go to any of our facilities. Most of them are located in industrial parks that are right next to a community. Look at Dogfish. I mean, there's somebody's backyard fence is right up against the digester. We do a good job of controlling odor. Most of our stuff is piped. We don't, we don't have open pits or things like that. There's no manure. So by and large, we've done, I think, a good job with community relations.
You even had on your Ben and Jerry's project the local public television come in and do a nice feature on you. So there you go, right there. That was an
Right.
amazing PR piece,
Yeah, that one made PBS nationally, actually.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had
And then, of course, you had the groundbreaking up at Ben and Jerry's this past year. And I have to thank you because I actually got a hug from Jerry at that day. It was unexpected.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was unexpected, and I kind of hung around to see, is he giving everyone a hug, or just because Fitch introduced me? So
Yeah, that guy's quite
Right.
amazing. Look at what those two guys built starting with a truck. Right? You think about all the guys starting a biogas company, and someday we can become that.
incredible. Yeah.
So
And he's still
there's
humble.
this, yeah, go ahead. So the latest is similar business model, embrace the large food processor, which is an accomplishment in itself, right? To get a big major company like you've got, say, Danone now in Minster, Ohio, to give a lot of trust into you as a company, that's got to be pretty rewarding to get such companies like that to give you that much trust. Like, tell us about that Minster project. Is that your biggest project you've had?
Uh, yeah, in dollars, not in volume, but in dollars, because it has a lot associated with it. This one stems from the Minster, Ohio. It's on the Erie Canal. And that kind of means that the discharge can flow either directions. It's stagnant there. That makes the dissolved solids coming from the municipal wastewater treatment plant really important because you can see dissolved solids. And the way that EPA looks at it, they don't care if it's a beneficial dissolved solid or, poisonous dissolved solid. In the case of what comes out of a dairy plant, mostly you're going to end up with things that would actually be good for the waterway and pH balance it, but nevertheless, there's a TDS issue. We're um, we're taking some of that material, and after AD, we're eventually going to go through reverse osmosis, and we're going to isolate some of that dissolved solids so that we can help not just Dannon, but the town of Minster, the village of Minster, meet their new discharge limitation from the EPA.
Yeah.
That's
So,
certainly innovative. Yeah, RO is taking that separation, nutrient recovery to a whole new level. So hopefully, wish you the best with that for sure.
well, it sounds like the economics are being driven by wastewater treatment, and so, digestate management. When we look at where do you start with a biogas project, I'm typically would advise, where's the digestate going? What is your plan for digestate? And if you have a sewer connection and you're treating to the sewer discharge, that's a best case. It can be expensive, but it seems like your team has the expertise and is focusing on it and bringing it in-house.
That's right. We got to find a problem in order for us to unload somebody's waste. Most companies, they're focused on top line growth. They're not really focused on their wastewater or their byproducts. If what they're doing works, then making some modification, doesn't really move the needle. But if there's a way you can impact the production volume they already have or help them with growth so that they can see some top line movement, then you're solving a problem and project's more likely to happen. I'll give you an example. We looked at a project in Hawaii. The Kona Brewing Company, they wanted to build a new brewery on the dry side of the island. They want to build on the dry side because that's where all the tourists are. But there's water rations. If they were to build the brewery on the other side of the island, it's a rainforest. But on the dry side of the island, it's a desert. And with their water rations, they weren't able to build a brewery of scale. We put in a system that did, I want to say it was 85%, don't quote me on that number, but on the order of 85% water reclaim with all that processed water. If you put that processed water back in to reuse as processed water, then the freshwater supply can go in the bottle instead of process. And that increased their capacity by 250%. That's a pretty significant win for them. It made a non-viable brewery a viable project that they went forward with.
Great, great. So you've been growing rapidly. You've got engineering, project management, construction management, commissioning, operations, all in-house. So what is the current state of affairs in Purpose Energy? How many FTEs you have? People seem you're New Hampshire based, but you've got a strong virtual presence as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we started like a lot of guys with a bootstrap company, and you had to make a dollar so you could spend a dollar. But over time, we just built up the snowball big enough to where there was an acquisition by a private equity firm called Quinbrook Infrastructure Partners, which has been amazing. They're into our model. They understand the concept of a J curve, where they're making an investment up front, and that gives us the ability to hire the SG&A overhead that we need to build a viable business. Today, I'd say there's right around 50 people that are W-2s of Purpose Energy. Our headquarters is in southern New Hampshire, which is kind of like northern Boston. And we've got sales folks and engineers and other people scattered around the country.
So certainly private equity has deluged our space a bit over the past few years. There's been a lot going on and changes in our space. How about the investment tax credit? What has that been like for you? You've sold some credits, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we did for the Middlebury and the St. Albans projects last year. We got on the transfer market and sold those credits.
Nice.
Actually a pretty painless process. I think our net, right, net of the discount we gave the buyer, all the fees, legal, I think our net was around 85 cents. Going forward, I think we could probably do a little bit better than that, having greased the wheels once.
Yeah, it's a good benchmark. I think that's what I've seen. Pushing closer to 90 is where you want to be, but Yeah, that's excellent.
Insurance costs what insurance costs, and
Yep.
we know that the legal firms that surround our industry are going to take their piece. They do good work and they deserve to get good pay.
Yep.
It's up to us to figure out how to reduce how much work they do by reusing some of the work that we put into the last couple.
The big one is the breakdown of your costs of your budget, right? Your budget allocation and what's eligible, what's ineligible, and all the bonuses, right?
Oh,
You have to go into
that's
the minutia there, but
yeah,
that's one
that's sort
thing
of
we as developers have some control over.
we've worked with a few different firms on that now. One of those pieces is a cost segmentation, and that tells us what's eligible for the ITC and what's not. We've kind of ended up with KPMG. They're pretty efficient at it. Cohn Resnick did a really good job with the cost seg on the St. Albans project. Um, and then you've got the Buy America or domestic content piece, and what else we have? Oh, the PW&A, right? Our projects have been over that megawatt threshold for the PW&A, so we have to follow those guidelines too.
Right.
But
Do you do much yet with solid feedstock and depacking, Fitch? It seems like your sweet spot is the high strength liquids. How
we
about
don't we
what
don't own a
are you
deep
thinking for the solids?
yeah, we don't own a DPAC, but we've got two facilities that receive DPAC material routinely. There's a waste treatment or a waste hauler in New England called Casella. Anybody around here knows who they are. Maybe on the West Coast, not so much, but Casella's got a DPAC in Williston, and they haul material to us.
Okay. So what kind of things keep you up at night? Hopefully nothing. Hopefully you sleep well and you've got nothing that keeps you up. But how's your day-to-day looking these days?
Our rigor is a lot different than it used to be as far as reporting and budgeting what's going to happen in the future. Um, and we've got a $3 billion fund that owns us, and they've got LPs, and they want to know a lot of detail. And we spend a lot of time focusing on that. On one hand, it seems like overhead to talk to our private equity firm a lot, but on the other hand, I look back to the days when we were venture backed and how much effort we had to go into to raise a small amount of money. Um, it's definitely a better trade-off this way.
It's a little different back when you were hitting up your MIT frat brothers for friends and family money.
That's right. That's right. It's a little different.
Good.
Yeah, boy, our
Okay.
business plan this year, it almost looks like a 10K for a public company. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quarterly reporting and the whole bit.
Well, congratulations on all your success, and it's exciting to watch your growth from one person to 50. So, all the best to you, Fitch.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that, Paul. And obviously, it took help from a lot of people, including you and O'Brien and Gear, and when you were at NSU and a couple other places. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, good to see you. So, we're going to move on to Drew now in our RIN roundup. So, Drew, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, guys. Doing well. Glad to hear
Good.
everyone had a good holiday season.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll have to work on the name a little bit because Ren Roundup might be a little too specific, but just kind of
Okay.
carry forward on the.
We can
We got to
name that.
workshop that one.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a good starting point. But we could definitely can kind of continue off of where where we touched and the strategy we took last time. Because an easy thing to consider is what are the important dates that we need to look at going into all the new policy or potential policy updates. Um, and I kind of have a very roughly drafted list because the unfortunate thing is that some of these policy calendars aren't exactly specific. We've got the RFS, which is due by the end of Q1 to have an update, but exactly when that's going to come out, nobody knows. We're hoping by the end of this week or month. But their deadline is until the end of the quarter. New Mexico is in the midst of publishing or potentially publishing. We don't have verification of that yet. It's possible they voted on Friday for the clean fuel standard, and they just haven't published it yet. So we will hopefully know that by today or tomorrow. If not, they are set to reconvene on January 23rd. A couple other interesting notes. New York has brought back up the S1343 or A472, the clean fuel standard that they had previously proposed. On January 20th, we should hear some more information about whether or not that's moving forward. As well as February 24th, the next scheduled IRS public hearing on clean fuel production guidance. A couple of other interesting components to this would be the Canadian market, January 15th, for the next update on whether or not they've decided whether they're going with a carrot or a stick, so to say, for domestic content or domestic projects. And generally speaking, it sounds like they're either going to promote projects built in Canada to produce clean fuels that either utilize a certain percentage of domestic content or sorry, no, I'm miswording that. They're either going to require a certain percentage of fuel produced to have domestic content, or they're going to provide some kind of bonus in credits to projects developed in Canada. Generally speaking, the number they've kind of been thrown around is 1.5 times the number of credits to Canadian producers, but whether or not that's set in stone, we don't know. So that gives a couple of interesting dates to look at. RIN pricing the last month or so has been kind of range bound, but as we get closer and closer to that Q1 deadline, you could see some volatility there.
I got a little muddled on your domestic content perspective there in Canada. So can you just run that one more time at a high level? This is so if we're making biogas in the United States, what does it mean to us?
Well, so it means that we will be limited because the program will require a certain percentage of the fuel to come from a Canadian producer.
But it's looking like a carrot approach, not stick. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, is that if you've got a Canadian project, Canadian feedstock, you're good.
Right. Yeah. Now, question, I guess, for the stick would be to the U.S. producers in general, is kind of where my mind was thinking. The choice of words was not accurate, but it's just kind of
I mean, that's a key question, whether or not there's some sort of, so you think, Drew, there might be some kind of demerits for US RNG going into Canada?
It hasn't been specifically proposed yet, but in either event, it could be effectively that for US projects.
Well, the biogas business is always interesting. The policymakers and regulators keep it interesting for us always.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Canada story had been sounding a little bit too good. So, with all the waves and the relationship between the two countries, I've been waiting for this one to come up. So now we're starting to see it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, we're at time, and welcome again to season 2 of Biogas TV Live. This has been episode 1. We'll go again next Monday. Going to have our buddy Bernie Chef on. We're going to riff on with Bernie for a while. And thank you to the 50 of you that joined us today. And Fitch, great to see you, buddy. Alex, enjoy the week. And Drew, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Drew.
Bye.